Hey everybody, this is M.E. Thomas. I'm here with Mr. 4th of July. Mr. 4th of July, I'm going to ask you what I ask everybody, which is, what is it like to be you?
Man, is that the best question in the world or what? That's such a great. And all right, let's see. I liked how the collector handled his interview, which is
Shout out to the
when you
collector.
actually, yes, I like the collector. What he did as at least in my perception, what he did is he would pick an adjective and then would flesh out that adjective that would apply to him. And I thought that was a great technique to start answering it because I'm one of those people. If I hadn't had 3 months to answer, sit around and think about how I might answer this question, like if you just pulled this out of the blue, I'd just go and give you some vague, I don't know, some vague something. But I liked what he did. Um, let's see. One thing is lonely. I'm extremely lonely. I haven't made a. This will sound like a lie, but I haven't made a new friend in over 25 years. I'm early 50s, and the last two new friends that I made, one I was 21, one I was 23, and both of them had to tell me out loud in words, "Hey, I'm trying to, like we're friends, asshole, snap out of it." And because I didn't get it, I remember literally one of the guys saying, he's talking, and he goes, "I hope you don't mind. I mean, I think we're friends." And I literally in my head was like, "Oh, he wants to be friends." And so I was friends with that guy for 25 years after that. But I never make friends. Uh, I've It's really based on secrecy. Um, when I was about 25 years old, the I had a conversation with the other of these two friends that I'm talking about. The other one I'm still very good friends with today, but he is kind of like the wildest, craziest. He's the most like me of anyone that I was associated with. Like we were just pretty out there. Like we are just getting into crazy trouble doing, like we're just, we're just doing crazy shit. And I remember having this conversation with him one time, and I said, "Hey man, so do you do like kind of a lot of things that you can't tell anyone about?" And I thought he was going to smirk and go, "Yeah, of course." And then we're both going to chuckle and then we'll go back to what we were doing or something. But he didn't do that. He stopped and he looked at me for a second. I remember seeing him like bite his bottom lip while he's thinking, and he's "No, man, no, not really, no." And that for me was a defining moment because it let me know, oh, I'm way out here, on the edges and stuff. If this, if my buddy right here, isn't, off doing crazy stuff too, then, um, then wow, I'm way out on a limb. So that was one thing. I've always stuck out like my entire life. I try as hard as I can to, well, at certain points in my life, I try as hard as I can. Let me say it this way, even when I try as hard as I can to blend in, there we go, I still stick out. I still, when I get a new job, there's something I've been consciously aware of for many, many, many years. And it's what I call the first 100 interactions. In reality, it's more like the first 20 interactions. But what I mean by that is, I get this new job. I'm the new person at your job, and then we start crossing paths and having a little water cooler talk. And somewhere in our first 100 interactions, or probably more realistically 20, but 100 maximum, I'm going to say or do something that's going to let you know, oh, he's into, uh, he likes different politics than I like. He likes different hobbies than I like. He likes different music than I like. And you're like, okay, all of those things I just named are pretty vague, but people hold strange things against you. So when I meet people, I gray rock the shit out of people. I just found out what gray rocking is like a month ago. Like I'm really really new at all of this. Yeah, a lot of this psychology stuff. I was way into it as a teenager because but then turned it off for a really long time. So where am I? Where was I going with this? The
The first 100 interactions, you gray rock people.
Thank you. I just found out what gray rocking is the other day, uh, and I realized I don't just gray rock narcissists. I gray rock everyone. Like you come talk to me, and I'll be very warm. The same warmth I'm having here in my, in the delivery of what I'm talking. I'll be very warm. I'll be real nice and stuff. Uh, but I try not to give people anything to pull on to further the conversation because I'm always into stuff like, uh, when COVID kicked up, I was just getting into doomsday prepping. I mean, and so I spent the next 6 years like in secret doing things like amassing 130 pounds of oatmeal and 200 pounds of rice and beans and 2 months worth of water in the basement, and I buy a homestead way out in the country that's 8 miles down a dirt road and then a quarter-mile driveway to the house, you know look, where I'm surrounded by coyotes and and like real shit that'll really fucking kill me, kill me or my cats or my my dog or a girl that's around, my girlfriend. um so I'll be super into something like that. And if you're into prepping, one of the first rules of prepping is you can't tell people you're into it, because when they flip the light switch and the power grid goes dead and everyone on the street knows that you have about 3 million calories literally in your basement, and it's all prepped and it's all shelf stable and it's all ready to go, and then they're going to come want your stuff.
I
uh,
will say that it's a good thing for all preppers that the Mormons are like this too, coming from like a Mormon family, because
yeah.
Mormons are like asked to have a year's supply of food for each one of their family members. So think, nice friendly Mormons. Like if there's like a,
I
the grid goes down situation, then it's always good to know a couple Mormons is what I'm gonna say, not just to help you move. They'll help you move too if you ask them for whatever reason. They're like their own moving service, but also for this, they have tons of calories as well. Shelf stable. I think you can buy it
yeah.
off like the like LDS.org or whatever has like you can buy all sorts of food prep materials.
It's good stuff to have around. It makes you sleep well at night. uh, you know it 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 I mean, it does draw a line between you and people, and even people, even just like, you have to keep secrets even if you don't want to. It's like, I can't tell that person, even if that person's my best buddy. I can't tell him I got all this food, even if I would share with him, if the boon, when I can't tell him, because someday he'll mention it to his buddy and they'll mention it to that buddy, and then someday, when I do need this stuff, then everybody's going to come want my stuff. Um, but let's see. So that conversation way back at 25, that was my first inkling that there was really, really, really something weird. And it wasn't just sticking out. Like, I've always stuck out. I had, when I was very young, I was flipping through old pictures the other day, and you can see a line in the sand. It's not just me remembering this way. You can see it in the pictures of this happy, bright-eyed, smiling. And when I got in, let's see, when I was 4 years old. My parents got divorced. My dad told me I was the man of the house. Watch out for your little sister. See you around. And he went to California. And then I only saw him a handful of times after that. And then so he left. And then in fourth grade, I had some problems with my teeth, and they pulled out my two front teeth and were supposed to give me braces to head off this disaster of dental work that was coming down the pike. They pulled out my two front teeth, ran out of money to get the other braces. So my teeth just went, I had the worst teeth. Today I have okay teeth. They're shaped nice and got braces and stuff. But the only person I've ever seen who had worse teeth than what I had was the sloth character from the Goonies, and his were a lot worse than mine. But that's the only person I've ever seen that had worse teeth than what I had. So my dad left. They pulled out my front teeth, and then I got molested by the babysitter down the street. And those three things right there in a row, you can see a line in the fucking sand. The pictures of just like, and they pulled out my front teeth, and I didn't smile for like in a picture for like 6 years, and that's a long time. From fourth grade to 10th grade is a long time in a person's life. Let's see, the teeth were an important thing, but I think the teeth gave me I think, doubt that, like, when I hear psychopaths talk, I never hear them saying things like, I was insecure as a kid. I never hear him say things like that. I never hear him say, you could talk me into shit that that was dumb stuff. Like, just things are coming. I remember being in fourth grade and paying this kid like 50 cents an hour to wear his little leather spiky bracelet. You remember back in the 80s, like the mid 80s, you'd watch like the Beat It video or something, and like the gang members, and they got the little spiky wristband things on. And I was in fourth grade. I thought it was cool. And but I remember even as a kid thinking to myself, this is weird that I'm getting validation, I guess would be the real word for it. I'm getting some sort of, I guess, validation from having, and this isn't even my fucking bracelet. I'm paying this other kid 50 cents an hour to wear his bracelet so that I feel good. This is stupid. This is dumb. Like, and those are the kind of things when I look back at something like that, is like, it just sounds like no psychopathic fourth grader could have ever been talked into something like that. But I wonder, is that from the teeth and the babysitter and my dad splitting all in a few years before that? And, that would rattle any kid's chain. So I wonder about things like that. I remember I've had a general feeling of lost and fake for essentially my entire life. I'm getting to the point where I'm feeling like I'm bulldozing the conversation. I'm not meaning to. I feel like it's my job to talk a whole lot about this stuff. So I'm talking more than I would in a normal conversation. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Like one of the big questions of my life, the things I've never really been able to sort out, is a sense of right and wrong. I grew up raised Christian, hit about something like 16 or 17, and it dawned on me one day that I was thinking about the commandments that I was supposed to be living by, and I wasn't. I was being a bad kid and not living by them. But I was thinking about how I'm supposed to be living according to this religion. I was thinking about the rules and what makes something good or bad. And it dawned on me that, okay, we have, thou shalt not murder, for example. Okay, well, the reason that that's bad is because God said it's bad. But if God had said, thou shalt murder at least one person during your lifetime, then if I came to this world, I did all the other stuff, but I did not ever murder anyone. Then when I died and went to heaven, God would still have a check mark on the bad side of my ledger. It says here, you never murdered even a single person down there. So it was this really weird. It's only bad because he says, don't do that thing. But he could have said the opposite of that, and then the opposite would be the bad thing. So that really tells me that there's no such thing as inherently right or wrong. There are just the things that I like and the things that you like, and which one of us is strong enough to impose their will, and which one of us, has a soft spot for the other. There's just things that we like. There's no real right or wrong that I've ever been able to nail down. And I've tried in lots of different faiths. I've looked at lots of them. I looked extremely deeply into Judaism, the Jewish faith. I looked a lot into that. I spent like 6 years into that one, because they ask questions that other religions just don't ask. There's like, if there's a verse and it's like, why did he use that word and not this word? If there's a list of things, why did he put them in that order and not this other order? They ask questions that other religions never even thought of. So it was interesting. But even that stuff, when you take it all the way down, it's just a set of rules that somebody wrote down, and that hey, we like it better if you do these things and you don't do these things. So there are for sure things that I prefer. There are sure things that I don't like. But you can make a case for kind of anything. There's like, and that's troubling, to not be able to point at a definitive right or wrong. Now, I want to be clear. I'm a law-abiding citizen and all that stuff. I understand how to obey the laws, but just because something is a rule doesn't mean that it is truly inherently right or wrong. Louis C.K. has a bit that I think very well illustrates the mindset. And it's this bit, and he picks this we all agree that this certain, if you do these terrible things to this particular group over here, it's all really, really bad. We know that's really bad, very, very bad. Should never, ever do that. And then he says, but what if there was a situation where I told you, if we allow this one set of bad things to happen to this person from this person in particular, this one last time, if we let it happen this one last time, it will never happen again to anyone else. It will never, ever, ever happen. And, just work with me on the thought experiment, because we're just trying to isolate the one particular activity. So if we allow the bad stuff to happen to this person, it will never happen to another person. We'll be saving all these millions of other people in the future. We'll never have these experiences. Now, is it a bad thing for us to let that terrible thing happen to this one last person? Or is it a good thing is it a bad thing because we're letting bad things happen to this person? Or is it a good thing because we're saving all of these people down the road? And there's no center of gravity when you think like that. I have some degree of admiration for people who do have a definitive core inside them. That buddy I was talking about, the one who bit his lip and said, "No, man, I'm not doing crazy shit." he fits in that category. Um, like I, the principles I tend to operate. If you saw me in my daily life, I tend to operate on a very, what I'll call loosely, I'll call Judeo-Christian values. Just your regular, nice, neighborly guy, just, you wave to him over the fence. He keeps his yard mowed. You keep your yard mowed. One of you goes over and helps the other one move a couch once a year. Just just a regular, straightforward, normal person. I'm not running around. I'm not running around um, being mean to people. I think I I think I'm very warm to people. Like I live a lot in what I call the first 2 or 3 layers. And what I mean by that is there's your public face, there's your private face, there, uh, and there's a few, there's 3 different faces. But what I'm trying to get around to, shit, I forgot where I'm going with it. I'm sorry.
No problem. You
Um,
said you live most of your life in the first 2 or 3 layers, what you call the first two or three
oh,
layers.
yes, that's where I was going. Thank you. Um, the like if I say we're coworkers, as like you're a coworker, I'll be very warm to you today. It's like I'll genuinely, in the shallow context that you and I interact, in the limited small context that we interact as coworkers, uh, I will like I will try to be a good influence in your life. I'll try to, it's like, you come in talking to us, oh yeah, me and the girlfriend, we went and did this stuff. It's like, oh, that's great. You come in Monday and I'll ask you how the game went, and I'm going to do all of that kind of stuff. Um, and and even while I'm Monday morning, when I'm being friendly to you, it is because I genuinely like you, but but I don't care at all about these people. I don't care. Like it. I didn't explain that very well. Um, uh, here's a good way to explain it. There's Take for example. Let's imagine there's a 50-year-old guy who wakes up one day and he realizes he's gay. But this is weird but that's weird because he was married for 25 years. He's got 3 kids and stuff. And here's the thing: if you went to that same guy and you talked to him 15 years ago, back when he was still married and his kids were in high school and stuff, and you say, "Bro, I think you're gay," he'd say, "What are you talking about? I'm married to a woman. I get mad because she won't have sex with me often enough. I have 3 kids. Here's my secret porno collection on my phone over here. It doesn't have any dudes in it. It he doesn't know yet that he's gay. He still thinks he likes girls. And that's his 2 or 3 layers. That's what I'm trying to get around to. And a lot in I live a lot in I will be neighborly. I'll, if you, uh, I have a neighbor who a couple of times, on trash day, I forgot to take out my trash. They went and got my trash can and moved it out, put it out by the can, without asking. So at the end of the day, after it was over, I went and took their trash can and put it back by their house. They put mine out by the street. So when I was pulling mine in, I pulled theirs in for them too. That's what I was trying to get around to. So it's like I'll do those kind of things. And when I'm doing that, I'm genuinely trying to like be neighborly and be warm to you. And if I see you, if you happen to look out your window while I'm dragging it over, it's, oh, nice day. We'll chit chat about the weather. Genuinely care about those things. But if you press me, you say, okay, you took her can back across the street because you think turnabout is fair play, and she took out your trash, so you should put hers away. Well, I do it for, um, I kind of, but you're doing that because you say it's the right thing, but you also really there is no right and wrong according to you, Mr. Fourth of July. Uh, you know so how is it right? So what I'm talking about there is that's me existing in the first two or three layers. That's this little, i I think, because I'm married to a woman and have a secret porno collection on my phone that she doesn't know about, I think I'm straight. That's or maybe somebody at home got that one.
Oh, I
All
got
right.
it. No, it's interesting. Like, it reminds me a little bit. I mean, it's true kind of so many things that we understand, like let's say the earth, has the crust and then there's like apparently molten lava underneath the crust, right? And it like seeps up sometimes in the form of volcano. Like what a weird thing. Like that sounds like science fiction, except every little kid, at least in the United States, makes a volcano like in third grade or whatever with the baking soda and vinegar. So we're used to kind of these things. And I think that that is like the example you've given of like the gay dude, is something that everybody would be like, yeah, we're familiar with that. That seems totally plausible to us, just like volcanoes seem totally plausible to us. But we don't really have a good explanation for what, like, how is this a thing? Like we can know the thing is true or whatever, but still there's that like inherent contradiction of like why is it that that even though it's the same distance, I mean we know the answers. I was gonna say like the polar ice caps or whatever, um are the same distance to the magma core, but they're not warmer, And I'm sure there are explanations, and part of it's the sun is hotter, even hotter. But I'm kind of like, how does the magma stay hot? I don't know that. It's like, what is
Nice.
happening with the magna to keep it so hot down in there? It's not getting access to the sun. I mean, it's just like it's an open question. So I can kind of see what you're saying is that there's a contradiction there that you haven't resolved, and that makes it an open question for you. And that there's only coherency like to like two or three levels deep. And if you start getting like deeper, then the coherency like splits apart to where there's almost no explanation. It almost becomes like quantum physics, where it's like, okay, the behavior of quarks are unpredictable, and how can we really say that we understand our world when, it's possible that I could like fall through my floor if all the atoms line up perfectly, you know?
Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Probably
It's
not is the thing that it's interesting, but it's interesting that like I mean that's true of everybody. Probably. Even psychopaths, that's true, that they lack coherency, through their beliefs and whatever. But it's interesting that it bothers you and that it seems like this is connected, that this is like contributing a little bit to your loneliness, your sense of loneliness. Do you think that's true?
um what I really think the loneliness is that if I really went around and just told everyone in the world everything I was into and everything I was interested in, when I went home, I just think uh, people are set to reject certain groups of things, and anything that smells like one of those things, and they'll just reject it. And um, so it's not that I think I'm doing anything wrong, because again, I can't pin down a true right or wrong. Um, but my perception is that other people, that's what it is. It's not that I think the things I like are wrong. It's I think the things that I like other people are going to think wrong. It just it's if people look at you funny if you, I mean, if you, I used to listen to a lot of extreme, like extreme death metal. Um, and if people hear that you listen to that and they listen to Journey and they hear that you're listening to Morbid Angel and Cannibal Corpse, they're just going to look at you funny because they don't know anything about it. They don't realize it's just scary movies put to music. It's just everybody knows it's fake stuff. It's just Cookie Monster vocals and but they still but they still judge you for it, and those judgments cause you problems. Um, like, let's see, one of the um, let's see, one of the thing, another thing, like one of the things about me when I meet people is there's a man that well, I guess it falls under something I was already saying before. It falls in with the gray rocking because it's just are they going to sniff me out before we even have a conversation? Are they gonna are they gonna know somehow? The like I always feel fake. It always feels performative. Um, the I have tended something I've noticed, because I've seen myself do this lots of times over the course of my life. I tend to get my identity from groups that I identify with. So, uh, in high school, I was a musician. In my early 20s, yeah, well, I guess I was still a musician, but then I went even crazier into it. Went in, I went down. I was a junkie for a while. I was super into firearms for a while. I was super into boxing and mixed martial arts for a while. I was super into weightlifting. You know, just, intermittent fasting, just like all of these things that the prepping that we were talking about a while ago. I would identify myself as if I'm in prepping mode, then I identify myself as a prepper. If I'm in, guitar playing mode, I'll identify myself, think of myself as a musician. Um, the I I had a buddy one time said, and he said it multiple times, and I knew he was right when he said it. He was referring to me. He's like, him. Oh, he changes. That guy changes personalities more often than most people change underwear, or something to that effect. But he was just saying that you know you you see him this year and he's got one set of interests and into one set of things. You see him 2 years from now, he's dressed totally different, his facial hair is different, he's using different sets of words. He doesn't want to talk about that other thing that he was so obsessed with 2 years ago, and now he only wants to talk about this new thing. um, I've let's see, like this past year, I've gone on a big look at my, just trying to sort some stuff out, man. Uh, about a year ago, I had a 12-year relationship that was off and on, and it finally, well, hell, I was gonna say it finally quit about a year ago, but hell, I'm gonna go eat sushi with that chick later today. So I mean, we're still hanging out. As I don't understand why. I do not understand what she's thinking. Uh, but because I don't understand what she's thinking. I tried to solve stuff with that gal a lot. Really, really, really tried to solve issues with that gal, and it just never worked. And it's so weird because it's when we live together, it's like she can't stand me, and then I move out. And this is the third time I've moved out, and she wants to keep hanging out. So at this point, I'm just planning on doing this forever. I was like, okay, well, we've lived together 3 times. We don't need to live together again. I'm sure it would be the same song and dance. Um, let's see, but that breakup a year ago um, really it has led me on a lot of introspection and trying to look at myself, like what am I going to do with the remaining time that I have here. My the way that I found any of this stuff, I found a CIA guy who was talking about methods and tactics that they use in going into other countries and convincing people to commit espionage. And make a long story short, you essentially become their best friend. But he was talking about like tactical paint by numbers things that you can do. 2 questions, 1 assurance. That's, you meet someone out of the blue, you need to, you want them to like you want to start building stuff, ask them 2 questions, ask them any question, ask them a follow-up question about that thing. Whatever it is they say, you assure them. You say something positive about it. Oh, that's very interesting. Hey, I had a friend who was really interested. You know what? I thought the same thing. You know what? I was wondering that, and I was wondering if you. I thought that just the other day. I'm glad to hear you say that. Whatever it is they say, you ask them a question, a follow-up question, and you give them a reassurance, and then you repeat that cycle. That would be one thing. He was talking about things like they use influence frameworks. One is called know, like, trust. Essentially, it came. It's a 3-part process. When you're the first, someone has to know you exist. You have to make the introduction. They have to like you. And then here's the thing, according to CIA, after a certain amount of time, if you like someone, you will eventually start to trust them. You will begin to trust them. Yeah, so it's just, I found this guy, he was talking about those sort of things. He brought up personality typing, like the Myers-Briggs stuff. I spent about a year looking into that. What I discovered with that is that the cognitive functions are legit, but most of the other, if you go on YouTube and start looking, typing MBTI, or say, it's gonna be raining bullshit on you. There's just so much crap on there. But the cognitive functions are legit. So when I discovered that the cognitive functions are legit, I could see them happening in people. I can hear people talking to them. By the way, speaking of this MBTI stuff, shout out to the collector again. Thank you for sticking up for Blue. You told that guy that he had to hire Blue. I'm Blue. I'm ESTP. Thanks for sticking up for it. But anyway, I just had to mention that while it crossed my mind. Now back to. So that led me to ESTPs. That led me to things like love languages, which I super duper think are legit. I never had even the first inkling that I might be a psychopath until I was watching. This is maybe 4 months ago. I was watching a clip, and it's this lady, and it's this long clip of masterclass of narcissism, psychopath, sociopath. What's the difference? And so they spend almost the whole time talking about narcissism. But at one point, and toward the end of it, the host is telling the guest this story. He says, "Let me tell you this." And they're talking about narcissism. Let me tell you this story. And the host goes on to say, "So I had this gal pal back in college, and she told me that she had dated this guy who they went out a few times, there's nothing really there, whatever, they quit hanging out, it just kind of fizzled out, they were done. Well, the guy was, hey, give me another chance, give me another chance, give me another chance. Oh, really, I'm sorry, I don't know what I was thinking, blah, 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 let's try again. Anyway, convinces the girl to go out with her again. He's great from that point on. For an entire year, he's fantastic. The parents love him. The friends love him. He's there. He's supportive. They're making plans about what they're going to go off and do in the future. And then on their 1 year anniversary, guy says, this was all a ploy. This was all fake. I only did this because I wanted to rip your heart out. And would narcissists do that? She goes, no, that's a psychopath. Psychopath can do that. And now I don't know if now that may or may not be true,
It is
but
true. Ted Bundy did that to one of his exes. My girlfriend has done that to people. I don't know that
honey,
I have ever done that, but I'm sure I would. It's such a classic. It's almost like a cliche.
honey, I what I realized, it fucked me up because I knew as soon as she said that, I was like, ooh, because I was like, I knew it was something I would do. And then after I thought about it a few minutes, I realized it was something I did do, but it didn't take me 1 year. It took me like 5 years to do. It took a very long time. Like I had moved away to a whole nother state and had to come back for the second half of it for like catch a flight and stuff. This is 20 years ago. It was a very, very long time ago. But that was the first inkling that I ever had, because I was like, you can't be a, I'm listening to all these people who are not psychopaths talk about psychopaths, so I have this very warped image of what one is. But that was so that really threw me off because I thought she was going to say, "Oh yeah, that's totally it's totally narcissistic." Oh no, it's a psychopath. It's a psychopath would do that. That fucked me up. Um, let's see, what's something else I got on my list here.
You want me to go back to some of the things that you have said before I want to follow up on, or you want to
Yes,
keep
ma'am. Go
going?
ahead. Sure.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I understand what you're saying here, but this is also happens to be a discussion on the Discord right now. And they have wanted to ask questions about this, about reputation, reputational harm. You said that that the first 2 to 3 layers, you generally care about the neighbor, but if you press, if you get pressed on it, there's no right or wrong. So what's the rightness of like bringing up the trash cans or whatever? And then you say that people's judgments cause you problems. That's why you feel like you have to be fake and performative. And can you just kind of like elaborate? Do you have like one or two maybe stories about this in which you have not performed and then you've gotten like some weird thing happen to you, some like social censure?
Um, I'm What I really mean by that is like here's an example I could here's an example more meaning what I could okay, here's more what I mean.
Yeah.
Um, by the time I was 13 years old, I was I was interested in women that were much, much, much older than me. Like I would have, I would have been 13 and been happy to get jiggy with a 70-year-old lady. But here's the thing: is if I tell anyone that, if I tell it, if I told anyone, man, I'm 13 and I'd really love to, have sex with some lady who's as old as my grandmother. Like they'll clutch their pearls. They're, what are you talking? What the? It's that kind of thing. It's things that there's nothing, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing. I mean, maybe 13 is a bad example. Let's make me 18 in the example to get rid of all of that area of stuff. Um, there's nothing wrong with having a crush on a gal that's way older than I am, but it's just outside the norm, and so people will treat you differently for something like that. So another example, I grew up in the South. There was a time when you probably shouldn't. I spent 7 years. Once I moved up north, I dated black girls for 7 years straight. But there was a time in Alabama, maybe, in the 80s, you probably shouldn't date black girls if you're a white guy. It's just gonna be more shit than it's worth,
Mm.
and more crap than it's worth. Sorry.
No, yeah,
Um,
go ahead and swear.
let's see.
Yeah, those are perfect examples. And thank you for that. This um well let's kind of talk a little bit more about this. So you still kind of do that. You still are kind of that's why you feel performative is because you're like it's not worth it to tell people the truth about yourself sometimes.
Yes, metaphorically speaking, I still have crushes on old ladies and stuff. It's nothing that's, just yes, yes, exactly.
And and it's just like that for 100 different things or 1,000 different things about you.
It's you know, 100 might be a lot, but I see your point. Yeah, about many things, I think is your point. Yes, yes, there are. I mean, there's as I mean, I have stories I think you'd roll in the floor laughing about, but just you can't. I could tell you're not very judgy about people, but oops, whoops, sorry, I broke the told somebody about themselves. Uh, whoops. Oh man, things were going so well. Things were going so great.
I usually think
Right.
you can characterize people's behavior. Like if you don't experience judgment coming from me, like a judgmental attitude towards you, I think that's fine.
Mhm. Let's see.
But do you
Um,
want to tell me a few stories? People like stories.
let me think. Let me think of. Here's one. Is let's see, the 12-year gal that I was talking about. My let's see, I live several hours away. I live a long distance away from any parts of my family. Uh, let's see. So I was living in Chicago at the time, and like dated this gal, the 12-year gal. Well, this is way back a million years ago. Anyway, we've been dating about a year and a half ago, or about a year and a half. We go down south to see my family, meet them, introduce all that kind of stuff. Um, but me and that girl were chaos literally from day one. I cannot imagine why we have tortured each other the way that we have all these years. I cannot imagine why we've done this. But uh, took her down there, met her, all this kind of stuff, and then we came back, and shortly after that, we broke up. And then a little bit later, and so I call my family, we're broke up. Oh, sorry to hear that. A little while later, me and the gal get back together. I call my family, oh, we're back together. And like on that second, when I getting back together thing, I could tell that it was like, oh, this is going to be, I got a little vibe from my family. It was like, oh, this is going to be one of those things, this back and forth type stuff. And when we split again, I think I mentioned it to my family we had broken up, and then I just never told my family again that we were back together. If I talked to members of my family, and ask about dating or something, I'd talk about, I led my family to believe I dated here and there or was single. Meanwhile, it's off and on with this same gal, uh, pure pure ridiculous chaos. I mean, like the best we ever get along. The best we ever get along is if we don't live together and we're not a relationship, but we get together on weekends and do relationship stuff. Like I have, um, let's see, so with regard to this gal, I never let I let my family believe I was single. Then my grandmother had a stroke. I go down with this same chick. Uh, yes, with the same chick out of nowhere, like 8 years later or something. And my family just without missing a beat, because my family's all kind of prim and proper, and my family without missing a beat was like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" Like, didn't know her, couldn't remember her name, didn't know if they had met her before, didn't any of that kind of stuff. They just played it, simple, right down the middle. We're friendly with her and stuff. So I go down there, chick shows up. I go back home. I just go back into oblivion. Oh yeah, me and that girl. No, we don't hang out anymore. Even I had to have open heart surgery 2 years ago. I was born with a defect where the flaps of my aorta, my heart valve, there's three flaps in there. Mine were all fused into one and just had one tiny little hole. Long story short, I was about to kick the fucking bucket. Like, I'd probably be dead by now. Uh, one, the reason I don't regret buying a house with a 12-year gal is it was her that convinced me to go to the doctor, which is what found the heart issue, which, like, they fucking A, dude. I mean, like, from the time I went to the hospital to the time I was having my operation was like 2.5 weeks. And if anyone's ever familiar with that, that is clear that, this dude's about to kick the bucket if we don't get him a mechanical heart valve in there in about 2 seconds. But even during that, Emmy, this is really where I realized I had a lying problem, Emmy, because I was still, even though I was having open heart surgery, I was severely fucked up. Everything, like, it was, I was in bad shape. I was still trying to keep my family from knowing that I was on, back and forth with this gal. My family wanted to come, say, when they found out I was going to have open heart surgery, one of my aunts like went online and immediately bought plane tickets for her and my other aunt, another one of my aunts, to, like, they were going to come nurse me back to health, hang out with me for a while. Like, I had to tell them, no, I got it covered. I've got I think I told them I have great insurance, and my insurance is going to cover an in-home nurse for 2 weeks. I think that's what I told them. Um, let's see, so I was still trying to keep them. The 12-year gal was babysitting my phone, and my aunt called my phone while I was in surgery. And when I talked to my aunt later, my aunt told me, she's like, I told her, it's like, we didn't know anything about you, sweetie. We didn't know you existed.
Was she
So there,
offended, or did she kind of know that that's what it was?
she on some level was probably offended, but she and I are we ought to be able to get along because we're both emotionally dead inside. We're both kind of don't see anything right or wrong. Like, from my perspective, the reason that it can't work then it's been the same few problems the entire time. Anytime I start to sort something out with this gal, I get one of three replies. Nuh-uh, it didn't happen that way. Well, it's your own fault. Or radio silence, the conversation's over. It's one of those three replies sliced up in a different thing. Like, this, I only talk about this 2 seconds, but just since you're asking about the gal, just to
Yeah.
let you know, like, why she might not be offended when she found out that my aunt didn't know about her after 12 years. Uh, um, Fuck, what was I gonna say?
She gave you three responses. It didn't happen. It's your fault, radio silence, and why she might not
Oh,
have been
okay.
offended.
Thanks. Yeah, so, like, there was, like, uh, one of the rabbis I used to listen to. I was talking about being really well versed in Judaism. I would go to sleep for years, for about 3 years. Would go to sleep listening to I went to bed earlier than her. I'd go to bed listening to a lecture from this one particular really great rabbi.
It was always the
That
same lecture or new lecture?
New lectures for just just like um, I would find his Torah study is what I would find. Does find his Torah study for various weeks. He had them. He's been putting them on for years. Uh, the reason I got attracted to that guy was he puts things in a historical context rather than just a biblical context. He'll read something out of the Bible and then he'll talk about, and keep in mind, over in Rome right now they're doing this, and over in Greece and Italy and blah blah blah, and he puts things. So I thought that was interesting. But this guy is super woke. Is super woke. His wife is a rabbi, but this 12-year girl somehow got it into her head that this rabbi was pumping my head full of misogynist ideas and all this stuff. Like he's against women. He's like, what are you talking about? Well, he never lets women take. Baby, his wife is a rabbi. His wife, rabbi, sometimes runs the Torah class, the Torah reading when he's got other stuff to do. It's like but I couldn't get that. I couldn't get her to accept it. Just like that one thing of so.
Mm.
So me and that gal are just dysfunctional up one side and down the other. But it's kind of weird because when the chips are down, we're always there. Like if somebody's fucked up, somebody's hurt, if something's really wrong, then the other one shows up and helps out. But if one of us wants to eat Italian tonight and one of us wants to eat Mexican tonight, that might be a thing. That might be an issue.
That's
So
interesting.
she and I are yeah. I don't understand why we can't get along because we're both pretty fucking dead inside, and we're both hermits. We're both hermits. We both kind of generally don't like people, but we just can't get along. Can't get along.
Uh, you said you realize you have a lying problem. I'm gonna use like a word that's like a psychological word, kind of like gray rock. Uh, that I mostly hear from my girlfriend who like has these issues too. That she compartmentalizes. Do you think that that's more what it is that you're just compartmentalizing your family, from your girlfriend and your girlfriend from this and you from your family and you from your girlfriend?
It is partially siloing them so that I can is partially siloing them so that how do I describe that? Um, Frankly, a big part of it is fun, is entertainment. I find it fun to have a talk with someone in my family and rather than say I went to the same restaurant that me and this gal that I've been with for 10 years, like we always go, instead of that, it's way more fun to just get on the phone and just make up a story. Just make up let me tell you about this, just make one up. Uh, people like you were saying, people do like stories.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed spinning tales. Um, I remember being about 14 and walking around with a couple of my neighborhood buddies, and I remember I started to launch into a story, and one of the other guys go, "Oh hell, here we go, here we go." He's like totally calling me out that okay, whatever he's fixing to say, we all know is complete bullshit. Totally fucking and I kind of remember it was like this. Oh, they can tell if I don't lie good enough. Like they can tell I'm lying. It didn't occur to me that they could tell if I was lying. Yeah, I remember that being like oh, okay. Well, if you're gonna do this, then you better bring it. Um, the funny thing about all this lying stuff is that if I do something wrong, if I do, when I say wrong, I mean against the set of rules that you and I have agreed upon. Uh, if I do something out of bounds and you call me on it, I'm very likely to say, yes, you're right. I did that. You're right. You're right. I shouldn't have done that. So I'm very likely to do that, to give you that, uh, which also is another reason that I think maybe that seems not psychopathic to me. That's, yeah.
That's actually
Eh,
very psychopathic.
See, while we're on that, I remember a sentence from your book. It's about the 5 hours, 18-minute mark or 14-minute mark. And the phrase is, people seem to have a harder time with someone who knew that it was wrong and chose to do it anyway. And that was one of those, that's one of the main phrases, because that identified with me, because I have so many times in my life looked at a thing, known full well it is against the rules that I'm supposed to be operating under, and I'm going to do it anyway. And if I get caught, I'll just take my lumps. And that's been sort of my MO throughout life. Uh, I'm gonna do my thing. If I get busted, I'm gonna take my lumps. I find myself not good at all about being able to lie my way out of things, but I
Yeah,
also I also never try. But what were you gonna say though?
I mean, I think often I use my girlfriend as an example because sometimes it's easier to see it in other people. But like, and she always talks about this too. And we kind of play this little game of cat and mouse even now where she'll do something intentionally. I'll be like, no. And then she'll like giggle like she like like the canary, whatever, cat got the canary or whatever. She'll just be like, like this little uh like devious little face and giggle to get caught red-handed about something, and I think she kind of likes the no. I think that it's like a weird, perverse thing that people wouldn't expect from psychopaths is that they like getting caught red-handed and then having the even application of the law and even punishment to them. Like when my girlfriend would get caught, let's say she gets arrested or something, we'll use an example that's really banal, but like as a teenager, getting arrested for spray painting, vandalism, and it's just like cuff me, you got me, where there's no fight in her at all, and she just submits to the process, she submits to the cops, she's not getting crazy on the cops, she's not getting crazy in the situation. She just gets processed so cleanly, so without any sort of force. And I actually think it's because psychopaths secretly crave predictability. And the exercise of the law in those situations is a manifestation of that predictability that they crave. And they like to think, hey, there are laws and there are predictable consequences to the laws. And when I break the law, then I get this predictable consequence. And that feels really soothing to them, I think, in the same way that when you swaddle a baby so it can't move its arms in their sleep, that's very constricting, but it's also very comfortable. It's like you can also predict completely where your arms are going to be from moment to moment because they're swaddled in this particular way while you sleep.
That's an interesting thought there. I think it makes some sense. I think that's in line with what I hear people talking about, how you raise children. You have to give children rules, otherwise they get all crazy because they don't know where out of bounds is, and they get all stressed out from not knowing where out of bounds is.
Yeah.
Sounds sounds like those two things. Sounds to me like those two things are similar. Um, let's see. On here's okay. People like stories. Here's one. Let's see. When I lived in Virginia, I lived in Virginia. I moved there because let's see, I got laid off moved to Virginia because that best buddy that I keep mentioning a couple of times, he was living in Virginia at the time. He owned a he owned a porno shop in Virginia somewhere that his aunt actually had, like, she opened it up, ran it for a bunch of years, eventually wanted to just sell it, and she just sold it to him. He took it over. So that's where he moved. I moved down there. Um, anyway, wound up getting the locals in Virginia say, the joke is Virginia's for lovers. Is like, no, the real saying is come on vacation, leave on probation, because there's so many rules, and they're just out to get everybody in trouble. And so I got myself in trouble. What I'm getting around to why I started this story is you were talking about your girlfriend getting arrested. I got arrested twice, 6 weeks apart from each other. Led me to a bunch of, I had to do probation. I had a restricted license for about a year and a half, drug testing all the time. I had to go to court ordered counseling, go to NA meetings all the time, all that kind of stuff. And by the way, speaking of my first 2 or 3 layers that I exist in, that entire year and a half that I was on that, I was full tilt boogie toward let's get better, let's solve these problems, let's not get high, let's find a line of work that we can do some, do all this. I was required to go to 3 NA meetings of the week. I'd go to in 15 a week. I would live in these meetings, just listening to these people tell their stories. Partially because I was trying to not fuck my life up any worse than it already was, and also partially because I had a restricted license. I couldn't do anything. Like, the only place I was legally allowed to leave my house and drive to was work, a probation requirement, or an NA meeting. That was literally all I could do. So, so I'd live all this, in my first 2 or 3 layers. I'm all doing everything I was supposed to, and calling my sponsor all the time, blah, 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 all this stuff. The day they turned me loose from probation, I already have drugs at my hotel room where I had gone and purchased, already set there, because I was planning I had to go in the morning and get them, to let me go. And so they let me go. I go directly from there to my hotel room, start getting fucked up, get fucked up the whole rest of the day, and then leave the very next day, because I knew that I couldn't stay in Virginia without, it's like I was going to wind up in prison in Virginia.
Yeah.
So I left the very next day. But I lived that whole year and a half in the first 2 or 3 layers. In those counseling meetings, I would sit there. I remember one in particular, I had to go to this court ordered stuff. I don't even remember what the technical class was, but anyways, this guy, the first day of class, funny this should come up, first day of class, he's talking about something's wrong. You shouldn't do that. And I start debating him on the definition of right or wrong. And he threatens right there, as soon, like in 2 seconds, he's like, listen, I'm not going to tolerate this bullshit. You fuck with me, I'll start you all the way over. You have to go through everything you've already done. I'll start you over in this whole program. And from that instant, I locked myself into those 2 or 3 layers that we're talking about. And I was the healthiest. I showed up so healthy, so open to stuff, quoting all their stuff back to him. Here's the one I wanted to tell you. I remember this one in particular because I've always watched body language a lot, because body language is more, my observation of their body language is much more reliable than their words or my gut feeling about what they're saying or doing. So I watched their body language. And I'm very conscious of my body language. So on this one particular day, so we're sitting there, and I'm sitting off to the side, and I'm literally consciously, every aspect of my body language is signifying I'm open and receptive to what you, the teacher, are telling me. I'm every aspect of it. And he gets, and at one point during the class, he's he kind of gets into it with this other guy, and he's chewing this other guy out a little bit for not being open to it. And he references me. Look at over here, Mr. 4th of July. He's totally receptive. I don't remember what his words were, but he referenced me being receptive to what he was saying, even though it was 1000% manufactured, mechanical. I could have written down on a piece of paper the things that I was doing. I could still recite a couple of the things. My legs were crossed at the ankles. My knees were pushed a little bit far apart. My shoulders were rounded a little bit slumped forward, and I was slumped down in the chair ever so slightly so that I could kind of loosely interlock my fingers together, kind of in my lap. But and on the last final touch, as you turn your palms where your wrist is facing up toward the ceiling, just ever so, just a tiny, tiny little bit right there. And that's some nice, open, receptive body language. Um, let's
Love
see.
this
Oh,
formula for
so, oh,
faking
nice. Hey, Paige, let
getting
me tell you
through.
this one. Let me tell you. Here's another one. You'll try this on your girlfriend. Tell me if they wait and see if this doesn't work. Because I got this from Sharon Osbourne, Ozzy Osbourne's wife, back during when they used to have that show, The Osbournes, in the late '80s, early '90s. Anyway, there's one episode, and Sharon's just this warm, wonderful gal. Everyone loves Sharon. Maybe they don't love Sharon that's on The View. Fuck Sharon now, but 20 years ago, we all love Sharon. And so anyway, she did this thing, and I saw her do it. How do I explain it? How do I explain this? You're going to want, stick with me on this. This is important. You'll love this. I've done this to girls a million fucking times, and they don't realize what's happening. It has an effect on them. Now let's imagine that. Let's see. Imagine that you how do I explain this? Imagine I'm facing forward and you're facing me, but just a little bit off you're on my left side, but we're facing each other, but you're kind of facing me, you're a little bit on your left side. Here's what I'm getting around to with this eye contact thing. And it's, somebody it came up in one of those court ordered classes, like somebody was talking about a come hither look. I was telling the girls about how to do this shit, but it's about the direction your eyes. Here's the important part. You're looking at something other than your girlfriend. Now, if you're looking at the clock over there on the wall or something other than her, don't go straight. Like if she's looking at you, don't go with your eyeballs straight from the clock to her eyeballs. Don't do that. If you want to try this a couple times and wait and see her reaction. And but you go from the clock over there, you go down, you make a V, you go down to the ground. And then when you come up to her eyes, it's this up from down thing. When she is looking at you, what she sees is your eyes come up to meet her eyes from down. They don't come over, they come up. Okay? Get it? So you're making a V. You're looking at something that's not your girlfriend's eyes. You look down, make the bottom of the V, and then you look up. You let her see that upward thing. And whatever that little upward thing is, everyone likes it. I loved it when I saw Sharon Osbourne do it to the cameraman. She was talking into the camera and she did it. And I was just like, and I could tell for her, it was the most natural. She didn't even think about it. She did that all day, every day. And that was one reason why people are so drawn to Sharon, is because she does that little thing. Try that. Put that
Let
in
me
your
see if I
little
can do
pipe
it
and smoke
now.
it this weekend.
Yeah,
So what?
watch me do it. Watch me do it.
It is. It is. That's a good one. That's a good one. I like that one a lot. Let's see. I'm consciously studying body language these days. I found a couple body language channels that have been incredibly interesting. The awesome thing about body language is you can apply it not only just to people but you start seeing everything. You start seeing the reporter asks that politician a question and you see his blink rate go through the roof. It's like you pick things up like that everywhere. So studying body language is, in my book, studying body language is very, very worthwhile. Studying love languages, very, very worthwhile. The cognitive functions are legit, and there are 16 different personality types, but it's so hard to get to the worthwhile stuff in there that I don't even recommend for people to even mess with it, because it's the juice ain't worth the squeeze on that stuff in my book. I say that as someone who obsessively researched it for an hour, for a year, for over a year. Now, I don't know how long been going, but I got several questions for you. Should we start that section, or do you have
Yes.
stuff you?
I
Okay.
do have follow-ups, but we'll get to them later. I have them written down.
Okay. Let's see. Um, in in no particular order. I'm just starting on the top of this. The Do you still think that, let's see, in your book there, and toward the end of the book there was a part where someone wrote into your blog, and they write this letter, and then at the end of it they're like, what do you think? And your first sentence in the reply was, you sound sociopathic to me. My first question is, do you still think that the person described in that paragraph, in that letter, sounds sociopathic?
I mean, I'd have to read the. Do you have that
Sure.
passage with you?
I'm sorry, I don't, and that's unfair. That's an unfair
No,
question.
I'll
So I,
I'll pull it up. I bet I can find it. I just have to find the manuscript. But in the meantime,
okay, while you're doing
yeah.
that, I can go into the next one if you want.
Uh-huh.
Okay, let's see. What percentage of the guests that you've had on these interviews, what percentage do you think are sociopaths?
Well, some of them don't even like claim to be sociopaths. They're like, hey, I'm borderline or I'm autistic. Uh, so do you want me to exclude those ones?
Yes, I'm referring to, of the people who show up thinking that they are a sociopath or sociopath psychopath. What percentage do you think are? Yeah.
Um, I would say 90%.
Okay.
But
Next question.
I'm also like if you're I mean, people say the number of sociopaths percentage is like 1 to 4% or something. That's broad. That's very broad. I mean, you're starting to get like, if you look at 4%, I think that's more than autistic. And if you look at less, so I kind of think of it in terms of this broader sense where I think of psychopathy as being like primarily a personality disorder. And if you just are more psychopathic than some of the other personality disorders, like you're more psychopathic than you are narcissistic or than borderline personality disorder or any of the other ones, then I think you're like a psychopath pretty much. Like I don't think that there's like some holy grail of psychopath where it's like only these particular things. And I actually think it's interesting to think about antisocial personality disorder. I think there's like however many 16 or something little criteria that they have in the DSM-5, and you only have to have like 3 or 4 to qualify as being antisocial personality disorder. Like it's a really low bar. And sometimes I think it's a little bit too low, but I think it's like, I mean, there's a spectrum. We also talk about, especially on the Discord, about the 15%, which are the people who aren't like technically psychopaths, but are definitely close there for one reason or another. Like if you think of it as a spectrum, like where are you going to cut off the spectrum? I'm not like I hate to gatekeep. That's a personality trait that I think has been stable throughout my life that I don't like gatekeeping, so I never gatekeep it. But I did find in the manuscript what you said. Is it okay to read this one before we move on?
Yes, yeah, that'd be great. I'll tell you. Do Do you want to know why I'm asking that question, or not
Sure.
really?
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead and ask.
Because because when we got to that section and we started reading, okay, a reader wrote in what was going through my head while I was reading that. I was like, okay, this is the part where she clears everything up for people like me who maybe have a few things in common with these guys, but aren't really one of these. She's going to say, she's going to read all this stuff because your your letter there was, I feel, is very accurate description, a pretty accurate description of me. So I thought you were going to say, no, if this is you, no, you're just an asshole, bro. I mean, not in a judgmental way. I mean, it was going to be your friendly, way. But that is like, this is the part where she clears up all the confusion for people like me. She says, no, you guys are not sociopaths. You're something else. You're just blah, blah, blah. And when your first sentence back was, well, you sound sociopathic to me, that fucked me up. So,
So, with
so
that in mind, I'll read the letter, and it starts off the epilogue. A reader of the vlog wrote to me, "Hello, I think I might be a sociopath, but I'm not sure. I don't have a conscience per se. It's more like a logical guide for what is right and wrong. Nothing turns my stomach, no type of immoral behavior enrages me unless I'm on the receiving end. All of my responses, even my emotional quote unquote responses, are calculated and performed. I know I'm not the smartest person on the planet very well, in all caps, but I feel it." So they feel like they're the smartest person on the planet. "As far as my heart and soul are concerned, there's nobody smarter on this planet, even though the very mind in question knows that's not the case. I use people when I can, so long as it doesn't hurt them in the process. I'm not sure if that's because I don't want to hurt people or because I'd like to believe I'm not manipulative. Generally speaking, I don't lie about anything except for my feelings. But I don't go out of my way to hurt people. I actually go out of my way not to hurt people. Pretty much my entire life is an act, and I don't really know who I am, but I'm definitely not normal, nor do I fit all of the negative aspects of the sociopath stereotype. What does this sound like to you? I'm asking because as much as I'm able to make sense of the world around me, I cannot for the life of me make sense of myself. That is the one thing that my mind can't penetrate. I could state facts about what I do, what I don't do, my habits and tendencies, etc. But trying to form an opinion about myself is like walking through a minefield of self-deception and convenient stray thoughts." And here's what I answered this particular person. "You sound like a sociopath to me, but don't be disheartened. I think you will find that as you continue to learn more about your condition and yourself, the world will begin to seem very right. Self-deception is a classic denial symptom. Denying the sociopathic aspect of yourself distorts how you see others and impairs your judgment. It is important that you realize that you are different from others. This will help you to avoid hurting them. For instance, most people assume that everyone else is like them and project their own feelings and emotions on others. For example, quote, I wouldn't be offended by that comment, so they shouldn't be either. This is faulty thinking. What you think or feel has nothing to do with what most people think or feel. In fact, it is best to avoid all normative judgments in favor of descriptive ones. Normative judgments hide a million different biases and self-deceptions that will lead you astray. A normative judgment, for this is an aside, is one that has kind of like a should, that this is how it should happen, this is what it should do, where descriptive is just describing what's actually true in the moment. I will continue. "You are special. You are very smart, I'm sure. But better than that, you think in a way that very few other people think. Your success at utilizing the intellect that you have likely lies in your ability to think outside of the box all the time. This is easy for you because you have never been inside the box. You don't even know what it looks like. You can see things that no one else can because you have entirely different experiences coloring your clarity of vision. Their blind spots are where you excel and vice versa. You seek answers, you seek logic and structure. You probably see behavior around you from empaths that you cannot explain. The explanation for their behavior is the most complicated and difficult thing for a sociopath to understand. But in seeking those answers, you will learn much about yourself as well. You will also learn that just because we can manipulate others does not mean we choose to do so. Just because we can exploit does not mean we choose to do so. Sometimes you find weaknesses that you do exploit, and sometimes you find flaws in society that you patch. Sociopathy includes both variants. Personal preference, upbringing, and life objectives can all influence why we choose to do what we do. What makes you a sociopath is not that you choose to do certain things, but that you are presented with an entirely different set of choices than a neurotypical person." That is nice.
Man,
Whoever wrote that, very smart.
there's a lot in that. Man, that's a powerful few paragraphs there.
Yeah.
That's all
I
right.
would say I mostly believe that. Yeah, that was your question. Do I still believe that?
Okay.
How much do I believe
Uh,
that? 9.6 out of 10. I mean, there are little things that I think are more nuanced now or whatever. If I had to write something like that, it would look like 96% similar.
that's believable. That's believable. See, next is um, why are you still doing this? Like, what do you get out of doing like running this channel, running the Discord? Why are you still doing these?
Yeah, and this is good because I should ask for people's help about this as much as people feel like they can help. I recommitted to it, and I was thinking about that, when we were talking before we started recording. I told you that I'm trying to get to 10,000 social media followers by the end of this year, and you gave me a suggestion of how you think it's gonna happen eventually. But I do need people's help to do this. And it's kind of like just sometimes understanding ourselves or understanding myself, I should speak from first person, can be complicated. Kind of like what I just talked about, reading from my book. Trying to understand yourself can be like, what the person said to me, that like I can see the patterns in other people, but sometimes it's hard to see the patterns in yourself. That is just a pattern that I've noticed. So I actually did a for since like the let's go back to the pandemic. So now it's August 2026 in case people are like watching this in the future. Like the
Yeah.
pandemic, things are going on. My girlfriend talked about this recently where she said that the pandemic was especially rough for her and that she was going through the reckoning. So I'll just like leave that. You can hear it in her own words. Talk about it. The video is called Aria on the Reckoning or something is what it's called. But I was dealing with that for like many years. And then after that, 3 to 4-ish years, let's say starting from 2020. After that, for like 2 to 3 years, I was dealing with my own health issues, with like women's health issues, like perimenopause symptoms that were particularly bad, I think, because I had a huge, like, uterine fibroid that I had removed about now like 9 months ago, last November. And as a result of the surgical menopause, I started experiencing like psychological symptoms. But then I also got on hormone replacement therapy. And so it's just was kind of like a period of a lot of kind of like dealing with stuff in the past or the present, and not really thinking about the future. It reminds me, I often think about this, my experience of going to a mushroom farm on a field trip when I was little. I must have been like in elementary school. And it's just this warehouse filled with rows and rows and rows of just mushrooms. And it was like so peaceful to me. I thought this is like the most peaceful place on earth, just like all of this rot producing these like something edible, like these mushrooms. But it seemed like I've been in the mushroom farm for like the past 6 years ish, and have had periods of mushroom farm before, but just more inward kind of or more present problems than I've been thinking about like any sort of great vision. But then it's trying to kind of like help myself. I did the ayahuasca, I had the hysterectomy, I got on the hormone replacement therapy, I did a Tony Robbins seminar. And actually, it was in the Tony Robbins seminar where he was, because I'm trying to re-engage with life. That's been kind of like my constant struggle. And when it gets worse, uh, then when anything in my life kind of gets a little bit worse or a little bit more difficult, then that is where I usually feel it. That's kind of like the canary in the coal mine, is that I have like this sense of lack of engagement with life. Then I have to kind of recommit, and I'm one of these people that's like, I'll say yes to anything. So I'm like, yeah, Tony Robbins, sure. My cousin asked me to do it, and I actually have a series of 30 videos that I think that, just like you say, talking about your CIA people or your your rabbi or whatever, that he just has like a lot of interesting good ideas. But in these exercises that he has you do, he some of them are geared towards re-engagement and trying to understand like your true desire about things. And I thought I truly, for whatever reason, love to engage with the psychopaths. And I don't know why I feel any amount of hesitation to do so. Like there's no need to even kind of like not engage with it when I'm so interested. And it's so funny too, because you can see that I'm interested in it because I've been doing it forever. I've been doing it for decades. And so but it is one of these things that I felt like a little bit of shame. In fact, I remember kind of thinking, I don't care if the videos suck. I even want them to suck because I don't even care about them sucking or whatever. And I've been thinking about how recently, the past few months, I've been doing shorts, like so I take the longer videos and make them into shorter. And I try to do better about the videos and I try to be more consistent and I try to do more of them. So I am trying. And it feels better, like especially when I first started doing them, to wake up in the morning and be like, okay, now what am I going to post on the social media? Felt better. And I thought it's so funny. Psychopaths are so funny because they know so much about everyone else, and this is illustrated so well in the excerpt from the book I just read. They're so good at seeing the truth about other people, and they're so poor at recognizing the patterns in their own selves. You know what my girlfriend said to me recently? She was like, "You know what, Jamie? I think some of my psychopathy comes from like some of the way that I was raised." And I was like, "What?" Is this for reals? You just barely now came to this realization that stuff that happened in your childhood is somehow connected to it? And she was like, yeah, this is for reals. I was like, this is shocking to me. I thought that you knew this like this whole time. But it's like psychopaths are like the last to realize these things about themselves. And it's like comic. It's like kind of sad. You can like see it in yourself and be like, wow, like I'm a dum dum for not having seen this before. Now, do I understand why it is that I find this to be so rewarding and engaging and feel like I wake up happy? I wake up thinking, oh, let's go look at the comments that people have left. Let's get on the Discord. Like it's one of my favorite ways to wake up is to think like I'm excited to kind of like do some of this like psychopath stuff.
I can believe
Why?
it.
I could kind of guess at why. I mean, I've always liked teaching. I've always liked kind of figuring things out. I even like talking to people because I learn. It's so funny. Your first 2 to 3 layers, I kept thinking this is going to become a catchphrase, like on the Discord. Because the playground stage, like these words that I use, they're often words that somebody just told me, and that's what's so interesting about talking to people like you is that you have come up with words to describe something that nobody else has come up with words. Like you haven't learned the words from somebody else. Gray rock, you learned from other people, or you learned that word to describe something you were already doing. But in certain situations, you've come up with your own words to describe things that you're already doing. It's just so interesting to me. So I'm interested in people. I also think these are my people. And I really feel like wrong things have been done to them and right things haven't been done to them. That no one's trying to help people. And in the same way, like I really think that this is a value of mine, uh, because I think about it often. I think about these two, especially these two instances, but any instances and similar things on this long road trip with actually psychopaths, with two other psychopaths from Europe that my girlfriend and I went on. It was like this month-long road trip of the Western United States. There was an instance in which the other psychopaths like left a door open or something, so the minivan, the battery's dead, and this guy in a Porsche jumped it, and we were in the middle of nowhere. We were like up in Redwood land or something, and I just thought like without him, we would have just been fucked, you know. And I felt so much the pressure too of being like the driver and whatever else. And then in Yellowstone, we were like, oh, there's plenty of campsites. We don't need to reserve one. We'll just see where we end up in the park and then get a campsite there. But that morning, they had shut down like two of the biggest campgrounds overnight without like announcement. So there were no campsites suddenly in Yellowstone. And there's kind of nothing we could have done about it. You know, what we should have done is just booked a campsite just in case or whatever. So then the rest of the day, we're just driving from campsite to campsite because there's no accurate information. All the ones you can book online are booked. And then you can only go to the ones that don't book online. So we just went from campsite to campsite, like for like 10 hours of trying to get a campsite. No success. We get one that we think, okay, there's just some like random camp chair here. And so we're like, you know, maybe this camp chair, it's fine or something. So we're like, this will be the one. But then the people show up and they're like, no, we've reserved it because the camp chair. And we're like, camp chairs don't reserve it or whatever. So we're kind of like having this discussion with these people. Then I'm like, I give up. We start driving away, and these people stopped me and they were like, hey, are you guys looking for a campsite? And it's like dusk. It's like long since uh long since hold on. It's long since are you still there by the way? You're not there. I'll finish the story. It's long since been the sun has set or whatever. Like we're screwed. This is the last campsite. We're gonna have to like leave the campgrounds and drive 2 hours and try to find a commercial place or whatever. And we'll go to sleep at midnight and it will suck because then we have to drive back into the place. And these people are like, it's just me and my wife in this truck. You know, you got how many of you are there? Oh, there's 4 people. You know, it's just the van and a tent or whatever. Then feel free to set up. And this idea of like people just like seeing that you're in a really bad spot and just reaching out to you and being the bridge and being the thing that like allows you to make the thing happen has just been like the source of my greatest relief in life and the source of my greatest joy when I've been able to do it myself. So I tell the story often of um my freshman year of college, where one of the people in my music program, her parents couldn't come up with the tuition. And so she was going to get kicked out of school. And I was like, this is so stupid. You've already been in school for 3 weeks. Like, I'll just give you the money and your parents can pay me back. And I had no guarantee that they would pay me back. And if they didn't pay me back, then I guess I would have been like screwed a little bit because I needed that money, not then, but eventually, to pay like my rent, in December or whatever. But everything worked out and she stayed in school, but I had like no hesitation to do it. And it's just like all these different instances I can look back in my life of just giving people money or giving people opportunities or just helping people like feels so rewarding to me. It's like basically the most rewarding thing that I ever experience. I'm going to pause the recording. Okay, we're back. Back with Mr.
All
4th of
right, good
July.
deal. Hello, everybody. Let's see. So I guess to pick up from where we left off, my next question is there such a thing as too much therapy? Like, does it beyond a certain point, does it just make you too weird and yeah, just make you too weird and unable? Does it make you unable in a different way to communicate with other people because you've had too much therapy?
It's so funny. You remind me, is it okay to say who you remind me of?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You remind me of the collector, and I think some of it is a little bit like you're both Gen X, and I would guess that uh Gen X, these are kind of Gen X traits. In fact, I went on a rant recently on the Discord where I was like, Gen X people, I'll give you the gist of the rant. We're kind of the reality bites generation where it's like we're going to confront reality. We're not like the baby boomers who have like this weird artificial idea about gender or war or kind of like what we're going to be truly in reality. And there were like a bunch of things that kind of characterize Gen X that I think are really interesting. But I think one of them is just this idea, like in the same way the baby boomers were like, all resources are ours to just kind of take and to enjoy life, kind of in like this hedonistic kind of selfish way that they get criticized for now. Like I'm going to have all the resources and I'm going to keep other people from having these resources, kind of like a race to resources in sort of a way, and hoarding of resources that I still see in my own parents, where I'm like your child, like, can I just do some laundry at your house or whatever when I come visit on Sunday? No? Okay. I have resentment for that. I'm like, okay, then that's what it is or whatever, but she's like, but every time you use my washing machine, then like you degrade its use for me to use. I'm like, this is nuts. That you feel this way, but that's how they do feel. And that they feel oddly whatever entitled and kind of like a little bit like begrudging about stuff. And Gen X, I think, is like reality bites is such a good example. I think like this idea that we're going to confront reality on its terms, but also the thing that you guys get a little bit unmoored about is this thought that everything can kind of be placed in like pigeonholed, understood and kind of pigeonholed and reduced to kind of like a simple thing. And I think you can see it a lot in like some of the academic work that you see from like Gen X people, which like we truly stand on the shoulders of giants when it comes to Gen X, I think, with regard to understanding a lot of things. But like perhaps maybe even in the psychopathic realm, you can see it best, where it's like, okay, we're going to understand psychopaths by brain scans, and we're going to do genetic stuff, and like the human genome project, where it's like we're going to figure out everything. Genetics are everything, and we're going to brain scan, like we'll be able to understand the brain no problem, and just like kind of like this desire to have taxonomies upon taxonomies and understandings, like even the way that you, is it okay to kind of give examples and the stuff that you've said about
Sure, sure,
this? Yeah, you're
sure.
like, I've gone down a rabbit hole of like the Myers-Briggs for a year of deep studying, and like the love languages and the CIA and the body language and all these different things. And it's like this desire to really meet reality where it is in kind of like this charming, like a little bit juvenile way. Now it seems juvenile because now we know everything's so complicated. Like Kent Keel and his like brain scans of psychopaths seems like a little bit charming now, in the sense that it didn't really amount to much, did it? That's okay though. Sometimes we get on that ship and we sail out and we don't know where we're going. But I think there was just like a lot of self-assuredness about it. I'm also like, that's probably great. Without that self-assuredness, maybe we wouldn't know half what we know about DNA or the human genome. Like we probably never would have understood epigenetics until we kind of pushed those limits. So I think in a lot of ways that the Gen X, like we owe more to Gen X as a generation in terms of like the pure inquiry, the pure seeking of knowledge and trying to understand and try to kind of put everything in a context, constantly trying to do that, than we do any other generation, except perhaps like the early 20th century generations of like Einstein or whatever, where there's like a lot of theoretical understandings kind of happening like in the 30s and 40s is kind of what I think. And maybe even like a little bit of Bell Labs afterwards. You see that in the baby boomer population, at least a small sliver. But like, computer science, like so much of the stuff happened from Gen X. And like it's interesting too, the things that Gen X did not get interested in have really languished. Like this is a rant. You can see how it's a rant. I didn't even shorten it. But things like nuclear energy, I feel like Gen X doesn't like it. And I feel like nuclear energy has really languished as a result. Like certain things that they just didn't like, they just were like aesthetically, nobody's doing, nuclear energy is not cool, the Gen X, and so it's languished. So it's
Shoot.
interesting to kind of like see that a little bit in like the way that you approach different things as like something to reverse engineer. Sharon Osbourne, why is Sharon Osbourne likable? Let's reverse engineer it. So I like kind of hearing that from you, and it's like such a strength, as I have mentioned, but it's also like it's like any paradigm is going to be beneficial because it's going to help you focus on certain things, and then bad because it's going to focus on different things. And I think like the paradigm shifting is something that the Gen X people like they can paradigm shift about like, okay, now epigenetics is the thing, but they almost can't paradigm shift about the paradigm of the seeking of knowledge, or like the idea that there's not a taxonomy, or that there's not 16 separate personality types, or that there's whatever. It reminds me, I went to in Los Angeles last weekend to go see Yoko Ono art exhibit. And so much of her art is just like trying to kind of figure out like different ways of viewing things. Like she'll be like, imagine like a hole through a piece of paper. Now look at the world through the hole. How different is the world now? And it is different. Like that's the truth is that she's just constantly being like, imagine this paradigm. Now imagine a broken glass. Imagine that the broken glass represents a morning in the future. When you're, like it's just so conceptual and so kind of like constantly reminding you that of all the different things about reality that you're taking in like a sip, and reality is actually a fire hose, like you are not actually in reality. You're just in the reality that you attend to. And that's subject to so many frames, as you've been talking about, all the different ways that we can change the framing, of the way that we look at the person that we love in order to get them aroused, and it is so kind of mechanical in a way. It's almost like at the Yoko Ono exhibit too, somebody's getting like tickled on their feet, and it's like a Japanese kind of animation video kind of film. And I was like, this is
Mhm.
such a funny thing, but everybody knows this, that you tickle the feet with a feather, and you can almost have like a visceral reaction to even seeing it happen, like there's just so many weird little evolutionary or other kind of strings that you can pull on people. And I think Gen X were like, we're just going to figure out them all. We're just going to figure everything out. And I'm kind of like, I'm on the cusp of Gen X and millennials. I'm kind of like, so I see certain things Gen X and I see certain things millennial, and I'm not post-truth at all. And it does bother me, this idea of post-truth, but I am a little bit like things are complicated, and it's great to kind of learn these things, but we have to have one foot in the other side of like not everything has like an easy explanation. There are going to be certain things that are like roughly impossible. And I think an interesting musical example of this is I saw this video recently where if you tune a piano, you always just choose what are going to be the things you prioritize. You can either tune, let's say, like fifths, like the interval of a fifth, or an octave. If we were to tune the piano so the fifths are always perfectly in tune to our ear, then the octave is going to be off. And
I
it's just
believe it or
like,
not, I was believe it or not, for 12 years I was a pipe organ technician. I used to tune pipe organs and and stuff, so I know all about what you're talking about there. But so yeah, go
100%.
ahead.
It's like, and to get to it, you understand this completely then. To get to any amount of tuning then is a judgment call. It's just
Right.
like, how out of tune am I going to make the other intervals in order to make the octave in tune, And it's just pure judgment, and there's no right answer, and I think those sorts of things to a Gen X person rub people the wrong way, rub the Gen Xers the wrong way. And I bet some of that is honestly a little bit of what you encounter when you say that judgments, people's judgments cause you problems, especially amongst your own generation. I bet your inability to kind of be like, oh, right and wrong, I know right and wrong. Your story of talking about how you sat in your program for either Narcotics Anonymous or your court ordered program, whatever it was. And the
Yeah.
guy, and you started kind of fighting back about right and wrong, and the guy was like, "Don't mess with me, I'll mess you up." That one
Hmm.
reminded me so much of the collector's story where they're doing the war games and the other side starts running away, and he stands up and starts just picking them off. And his commanding
Yes,
officer was like, "No, you can't do this. These are war crimes." And he's like, "They're not war
listen.
crimes."
When he was on there talking about how it's a war crime, you're not. He was talking about how somebody was talking about wait, it was somebody's talking about snipers, and people will hate on snipers because the
Yep.
sniper will shoot the other guy. He leaves him out in the field, so he's screaming. If nobody, then he waits for two guys to come out there and get him. He shoots them, and he leaves them all out there. If nobody comes out there, he shoots the guy in the foot, so he screams louder. I was like, and when I found out that's war crimes, I was like, wait a minute, you're not that's not what you're supposed to do.
Is that war crimes? I feel like that's not. Is it?
It is. It is.
Dang it.
Yes. Yeah. You have to
I feel
actually
like it
like.
shouldn't be war crimes, but that's just me and
Yes, I
my
agree. It
shits.
shouldn't. It's actually so. I'm sorry. I livened up because I was referencing a different story than the one you're talking about. But I remember what you're talking about. The collector, yeah, the guy was running away and he stood up and shot him in the back, which is in real life, of course, what you would do.
Yeah.
Because if that guy, because of all of the reasons that the collector listed off for why it was a valid shoot.
Yeah. So that, I mean, that's your paradigm. So in a lot of ways, I'm just kind of like your paradigm of there's no right or wrong is so in opposite to your generation's dominant paradigm that I could kind of see how there would be that like friction. But what was your question? But the other thing that reminds me about the collector is the collector's kind of like, now I remember it's about therapy. The collector, let's not say the collector, let's say more generally Gen X people I encounter
Yes,
tend
yes.
to kind of be more like, well, that's just how it is. That just is how it is that my paradigm's off, and so I have to perform. Like I have to continue performing. Otherwise, I'm going to be subjected to reputational harm, and the reputational harm will cause me limited opportunities, lost relationships, lost professional opportunities, like there'll be actual like my neighbors won't do my trash cans anymore, you know.
Taking
That's
words out of my mouth.
yeah, that's the thing that Gen X people say. Say to
That
me about like therapy, about kind of like the reason why they can't be authentically them is because you're going to get so off the same page with people. And it kind of reminds me like this story that has haunted me is that my grandfather and I probably had my paternal grandfather probably let me start over. My paternal grandfather and I probably had maybe one or two actual conversations all of my life. And one of them was about this. And I found it so disturbing to my core that when my dad was young, his parents got married in a shotgun wedding because my grandmother was pregnant, right? The marriage lasted like a year. My grandmother raised him for like another maybe 6 months, even like took him to BYU again for a semester. But then everybody kind of understood the fact that she had to kind of remarry. That was her only chance at life, and it was going to be more difficult for her to get remarried if she had him, with her at college. So he stayed with his grandparents, whom he hated, right? She does remarry. He reunites with his mom at like age 5. But all of this trauma, you can just imagine from like being abandoned by his mom for several years, etc. They promptly moved to Germany because his new dad is in the military and he goes to German school and it's just like all, it's not American school. They're not speaking English. So obviously he's learning German, is what my grandfather's telling me. But he
mhm.
pretended like he didn't know German to his parents. He like thought in his mind, if my parents know that I speak German, and this is the story that my grandfather is telling me, then there's going to be some disconnect between us, and maybe they'll even like leave me again, you know? And so he would do all these weird things to pretending he doesn't know German. Like they'd be walking, through the town or whatever. His school friends would be like, "Hey, hey." And then he would ignore them kind of fall back a little bit and then like quickly give him a quick little wave or whatever. But that my
Wow.
grandfather knew that he spoke German too because he would come up to them sometimes and be like, the neighbor wants you to move your car. Right. And that's what this reminds me of. The Gen X people being like, there's no way I could possibly be myself because I fear social rejection. And it makes me so sad for you guys. And I don't know how to speak to you in a way that suggests that either that's not true, as bad as you think it is, or it's so different, or who cares because you're old enough, you're like settled enough in your life that it doesn't matter. But I cannot somehow communicate to you guys in a way that seems effective about this. And I would love to be helped out. If anyone can think, hey, how can you talk to some Gen X psychopath or psychopath adjacent people to help encourage them to think that the social consequences of their behavior are not worth living a lie for the remaining decades that you have to live? That's all I have to say about that.
We'll be curious to see what the comments section has for us. Let's see, a couple more things. I've had you for a while. I don't want to burn you out. I want to.
Yeah.
There's a couple more things. One thing I wanted to say is I told you before. I told you before we started recording, and I just want to say it again that I don't understand why your channel doesn't have 5 million subs. And I think your channel is going to have those kind of numbers someday. And the way that I think it's going to happen, this is what she was referring to, guys, when she was telling you that. Um, but I think what's going to happen is so one day somebody's going to go on some big fancy podcast. It's going to be one of Joe Rogan's crazy weed smoking MMA buddies is going to go on Rogan's podcast, and they're going to be sitting around shooting the breeze. And one of them is going to say something about some crazy politician, psychopath, blah, blah, blah. And as soon as that word gets mentioned, the MMA guy's going to go, hey, wait a minute, man. My girlfriend told me, did you know there's a channel on YouTube run by a diagnosed psychopath? Man, she has interviews every week. She's got these new crazy people on there. They're all used, and they pull it up and listen. So, and I think you're just going to wake up one day, Emmy, and you're going to have 1.2 million subscribers, and there's going to be an email from YouTube saying, "Hey, we think your channel got hacked because you blew up overnight." So that's what I think is going to happen. Now that's one thing I wanted to just put there. But that leads me kind of to my last couple of questions I had here, which are, uh, why don't you sell anything? It only occurred to
Mm.
me in the past few days. You don't hawk memberships or a Patreon or coaching or courses or like you don't even. I mean, hell, I don't even think you have a join button on your YouTube channel. I mean, maybe you do. I don't know. But why? And 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 as a consumer of your channel, it's been nice, that you don't hawk stuff all the time. But I would understand if you did, and I just want to know, why don't you? Because I think people would pay you shit tons of money for coaching from someone with a diagnosis. And it's like, why don't you charge for? Why aren't you selling anything?
Um, Honestly, like I have to say, this is true of like my law practice too, is that I am post being motivated by money to kind of do stuff that I'm not inherently motivated to do anyway. Like all of my law practice is stuff that I enjoy doing. I basically can't be forced to do something that I don't already enjoy. However, unlike Gen X, I am open-minded enough to
It's
realize that there are certain things that I don't currently do that I would make me happier, about I'm willing to change. I'm willing to try something new. So if anybody has like an idea, my main goal here is let's try to make things better for everybody. Like we kind of joke on maybe it's not a joke. It's kind of semi-serious, but kind of a funny name that there's the sociopath Fulturi, which is like just a collection, it comes from the vampire books, the Twilight series, where the vampires have their own secret society in which they help each other, right? And it's like you hear it all the time. I've experienced it before, the Mormon mafia or whatever, where it's like you're Mormon, I'm Mormon, I know you're gonna help me type thing. I think like I would rather just see growth than I would see stuff come to me directly. So anything that would help like the growth, like spread the message. Like you are so generous to come on here, Mr. 4th of July, and talk about the things that you've come talked about. And the one thing that makes me sad is not that I haven't been able to make $5 from it, because I do have like ads or whatever, but not like in middle ads. Or the thing that makes me more sad is that there's not a million people listening to it, because I think it's worth a million people listening to it. And so that sort of thing, I do kind of think, okay, that's the one thing I think about. But whatever money that I get from kind of like the book is mostly just going back into this, going back into traveling to meet people, going back into like in whatever way I can, supporting people that need to be supported. And that kind of gets back to the reason why I do it at all. And that's like the second book I'm writing is like a beginner's guide to building a sense of self. I mean, I may have to self-publish it if I don't find a publisher, but that's another reason I'm like, all this stuff that we're doing, I'm doing anyways, you're doing anyways. And so if we can just increase the audience. And I also think this part of the reason why you and the other Gen X people worry about the social consequences of being more yourself is because it's just okay to hate on psychopaths still,
Oh,
Olivia Rodrigo, who is like a Gen Z person, right? Is using it as a pejorative in her song, like you're something something like a goddamn sociopath, and no one would say that for like the R word or autistic people. Like it's still a pejorative. It's still just like a slur, and people just use it in the form of a slur and nobody cares, about it. But I think we're close. I think we're close. It's the change that I've seen even since, when I got fired from being a law professor in 2013 when the book came out. So 13 years ago. The change is amazing. And when I first started kind of doing more open stuff, it was mostly like hateful comments. And now the comments are very thoughtful. They're very thoughtful. They're very sympathetic. Like it's crazy to see the shift, in just the past decade plus a little bit. And I bet we can get to total acceptance in another 13 years. That's my goal. So, so if anybody kind of wants to help, in like any sort of way that you can, that'd be great. Like I make enough money from like my law stuff. I don't really need more than my simple needs. And this is like the only thing, like this is the thing I find most engaging. I would rather have that engagement than I would amass things. I don't even like to own things because then I worry about taking care of them and losing them and stuff. So I don't know. So
yeah.
please come help in any way that you can, an open invitation to help in any way, like what you would have spent on the coaching or whatever. I'll still coach you for free or whatever. But also, I mean, I don't know, there aren't good places to donate to right now, so hold on to your money. But any other way that you can use like your influence, your resources in a way that you guys feel comfortable with is my open invitation. Like, if we all do our little part, then it will go faster.
In hands make light work, as they
Yeah,
say sometimes.
yes.
Uh, all right, one or two questions left. Let's see. How has this I think you just answered this, but I'm going to answer. I'm going to ask the question just in case there's a specific answer that, although you may have just answered this. How has the goal slash purpose slash direction of your next book? Oh no, the next book. How has the goal slash purpose slash direction of your next book changed since you began to work on it?
So, honestly, and my literary agent often says like your first idea was your best idea. But I've completely abandoned it. At first, it was like, I'm just going to go visit a bunch of psychopaths around the world. And then each chapter is kind of like a new psychopath that I've met and interesting things about the psychopath. And people were like, nope, we don't want to read that. Like I submitted it to however many different publishers. They're like, no. Then I started thinking, Okay, like what sort of book do I really want to write? What legacy, let's say, or what kind of like ladder can I leave behind, because I've progressed through different things and figured out kind of the hard way certain things that I think are helpful to other people, especially people who have sense of self issues, weak sense of self, or on the weak side, or could use some more strengthening sense of self. And so then I thought, okay, I have like more insight about this than I think anybody else kind of does. And I have like a framework that I think is a simple framework that is going to help people in the same way that we talked about before we started recording about how I feel like I have a simple framework for personal boundaries. And it's not perfect, but it's simple and effective, mostly effective, about the don't tell people about themselves and don't tell people what to do. Those two rules, seem to cover a lot of ground when it comes to personal boundaries. So I have like a similar kind of framework for sense of self. And I keep working on the book, but also I keep getting insight, honestly, from talking to people like you and like realizing like I talk so much about Gen X. Part of the reason is that I just have discovered in the past 6 to 9 months or so that a lot of this is generational or gender. Like I kind of assumed that my perspective of things was going to be pretty universal, and it's not true. And so understanding kind of different things helps me see from different angles or whatever. So that's how it's evolved, is that it's very different from the first book, and it's very different even from my first idea of the second book, and it's different even now than what it was a year ago. Like as I meet and talk to more people and kind of like interact with people on the Discord, I get like a better idea of things that are pretty specific, and consistent amongst people, and things that aren't. That's just something that like you're gonna have to figure out for yourself. Is it could be one of these 10 different ways, but it's probably one of these 10 things. So understanding like where there's like a relative consensus around this helps, or where no, this is gonna have to be like a trial and error. But think about some of these things when you're doing the trial and error, to kind of help guide you.
All right. Yeah. Let's see. Um, all right, now, one last thing that I wanted to cover, and I don't know if you had stuff you wanted to double back to. Um, I wanted to take a minute and try to talk Dorian into do is at you didn't say I put this in the email, and you told me before we talked that you actually really didn't read the email. But part of the things I talked about in the email is Dorian, my brother, you are a killer artist, man. That flag you made the other day, that is amazing. I had an idea that I wanted to run by you though, and here's what I think. Here's what I wish you would do. I wish, Dorian, that you would hear me out, brother. Hear me out. I wish you would get into watercolor paintings and start selling them through your social media. Let me tell you why I say that. Because the flag that you created expressed so much. I just expressed a lot. When you look at that, it gives you a very, very powerful feeling. Here's the thing, though: it's done all in that electronic stuff, and people just they're in this day and age when everything's turning into AI slop. People are going to be craving real stuff that they can hold in their hand, and everybody from Marilyn Manson to Syria to all kinds of people do watercolor paintings. Everybody from fucking Hunter Biden to Marilyn Manson sells watercolor paintings. They're cheap to get into, and they're expressive. I know this may sound ridiculous to you, Dorian, but look up Marilyn Manson watercolor paintings, because you can do what he can do, and you can sell it, and you can make some money, brother, because you have a talent. But I personally think that it's not going to get a fair shake, because it's going into that electronic, all the computer graphic stuff, and it's just not as authentic as something that's painted and watercolor is dirt cheap to get into, and you can start selling them, bro. I mean, you can make a lot of money. People, I mean, you may not sell them for all $1,000,000 a piece, but somebody will give you $50 for the first one. I'll give you $50 for the first one. Somebody will give you $100 for the second one. Anyway, I'll get off my high horse, Dorian. But that's really what I wish you would do, man. I wish you would look up Marilyn Manson and Hunter Biden or anybody else doing this watercolor stuff and kick around getting into that, because I see you as a modern day Vincent van Gogh type. Like I think you have something real in there. And I think if you can get it out to the world, people will give you money for it. So I just wanted to take that little piece here while I'm possibly had your attention, and maybe you'll start doing that. And how about your first one, man? How about your
I
first
love
one?
this idea. A commissioned artwork from Dorian, from Mr. 4th of July, $50
Like,
to
like just imagine how cool it would sound to say, hey, look at this watercolor painting I got that's bad as fuck, because he actually is a killer artist and he's crazy. I mean, just look at this. Oh, it's a diagnosed oh, check him out. Here's a picture of him. He's got a button down suit and tattoos on his face. That's the guy that did this. Just sound cool. Okay.
Yeah, he has a beautiful suit collection. When he went in, when we visited each other, we met in the Lake District in England, and he wore this pink suit, which was beautiful.
He's a great dresser. I mean, you're a very charismatic fella, but he's got a lot of talent in there, and I'd love to see him use watercolor paintings on it.
Yeah,
So that exhausts everything I had. Is there anything you wanted to double back to?
yeah, there is one, and it
I got time. I'm in no hurry. I'm not trying to kill your schedule. So go ahead.
yeah. So I'm gonna kind of explain to you. I'm gonna ask you first, and then I'll kind of explain why. You said that you get identity from the groups that you identify with, and that, for instance, you mentioned junkie, that you're into firearms, that you're into boxing, weightlifting, and some guy mentioned that you change personalities like more than you change your underwear. Or like I like how other people change underwear, I think. When you say that you get these identities from groups that you identify with, does it feel like you really are a member of the group in that moment, like that really is your identity? Or does it feel like a mask? Or does it feel like a third thing or something in between?
It's the reality of it is it's that first 2 or 3 layers. It is something every time that I want it to be true. I want this new thing to be the thing I want when I decide after 20 years of no religion and I dig the Bible back out. I want the Bible to make sense so that there is a definitive right or wrong, or when I like
Gen
each of those
X.
new want this to be the thing. I want, okay, I'm a prepper. So a prepper does this thing, 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 and this thing. So if I do all of those things, I'll be set. Okay, now I'm an MMA guy. I'm a health guy. So a healthy guy does this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing. It's like every time I want it to be the thing that sticks, but nothing ever sticks because because the reason you do a thing is because you should do it. But if you should do it, that means there is a definitive right or wrong. But when you spend too much time thinking about what's really right or wrong, it all falls apart. And then you pick the next thing. I've been obsessed with this personality stuff since that 12-year relationship split up. And I'm probably about done with it. Like when I hear you guys talk about the therapy stuff and like doing the writing and like anything that sounds like that, I want to run screaming from the building. So I know I'm never going to do those things. So I'm also never going to get the benefit of those things. Let's see. Is there anything else that I hadn't answered your question?
I will tell you, is it okay to kind of like tell you? I mean, you had asked before on the recording that you wanted to know like my opinion about like what you
Yeah,
are.
yes. Where do I stand on this spectrum from your point of view?
And this is so caveated is just like, I have no credentials. But a couple things that I thought about when I was listening to this and some of the things that you said is it definitely seems like even the thing you just said about like I'm never going to do the therapy, so I'm never going to get the benefit. The therapy is just trying to get deeper. And actually, like you may be interested in this exercise. I think I've mentioned it before, but I think it's called Seven Whys Deep, like why the question, and you can like look up PDFs that kind of explain it. It's also like this dude that's affiliated with Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, talks about it, but some other people have kind of taken it up as interesting things. On the Discord, they just mentioned that, like on a Tesla job application, they have like 5 whys or something. The idea is that you don't want to go too deep because it starts getting so abstract and kind of like what you have said is your concern about therapy. Like, does it cease to be useful? Uh, but that's what it reminds me of you saying that you live in the first 2 or 3 layers and it's kind of shallow. And you may be interested in kind of asking, like, the 7 whys deep is not meant to be like why who you are necessarily, but why this particular thing, so like why MMA, or why firearms or why prepper, and you're going to start to see, I think, that even though you have all these disparate things that are happening, that kind of like we talked about before, the layers of the earth have one thing in common, and that there's like a core of like molten lava or whatever is there. Part of my incorrect geography understanding of the planet, but that the 7 whys deep end up kind of getting like into this core, and that you'll get some insight that way. And that's relatively free of therapized anything. So, step one there. Step two, like it seems like you have even more. We haven't even talked about some of the like classic psychopathy things, like uh, empathy or conscience and whatever. And we don't have to really, but it sounds like if I had to kind of characterize you, I would say that you definitely seem to have at least one foot in personality disorder. And then it's a little bit like what we were talking about before. Like, do you seem narcissistic? Not necessarily. Do you seem borderline? Borderline actually kind of gets closest to me. If you had answered, for instance, when like you said these things, like you get your identity from the groups you identify with, and then change personalities like underwear. That's a very borderline thing to kind of say, but borderline people, and I'm not even going to ask you, these are just kind of questions for yourself to answer yourself if you would like. They tend to have emotions though, and they tend to feel their emotions kind of really deeply. And the stuff that you've said about your 12-year girlfriend, where you're both like dark and emotionless, suggests no to borderline, right? And it doesn't sound like your answer to me about those doesn't sound like you're actually identifying with them, because I have started saying this about borderline. I think it's kind of an interesting distinction. I like it my own self that I came up with it, is that the difference between the chameleon of borderline and the masking of a psychopath is that the borderline actually feels in the moment like she is that person. He is that person, that they are, they let's say they're into death metal for like 6 months or something, that they're a total metalhead, that this is their identity, that they dress that way and they talk that way, and it's like they eat and breathe that way, and they're totally immersed in the situation in a way that feels real and authentic to them, like this is an authentic expression of their identity in that moment. Whereas a psychopath, kind of classically and maybe even hyperbolized a little bit, classic psychopath would be like, this is a mask. None of this is true. None of what I do or say is kind of true. Everything is a mask. That's kind of like the extremes of the psychopath versus borderline. But they do look really similar because it's like they're both really impressionable. They're both really influenced by their externals. They're both responding to context largely instead of responding from like a place of inner sense of self in which they're expressing their self, because if you're coming from a place of inner expression of self, then you're relatively consistent, no matter who you're talking to or what situation you're in, because you are always you. But if you're coming from a place of low sense of self, you're not consistent. You're like this, in this situation and that person, and you're this other thing in this other situation or that person, or from month to month you're different, or from year to year you're very different.
Those are interesting thoughts there.
Yeah.
That's for stuff to think about. And I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I appreciate you so much, Mr. 4th of July, for coming on and chatting with us. People are going to love some of your new little phrases.
I'm, I'm, uh, I'm, I'm just glad to be here, man. It's like I'm mesmerized by this channel, and everybody else let me listen to theirs, so I figured I'd let them listen to mine.
I'm glad we caught you before you disappear. That's also one of the psychopaths on the Discord always complains that, we hear from people like you and then we never hear from you again. Sounds like that's what this is going to be too.
I heard someone say that the other day, and I don't know what I can add or like what value I bring, but fuck it. I'll go join the Discord and say hi to everyone. See what
Yeah.
it's like. I'm sure it's a bunch of. I mean, I'm sure it's awesome people there. Um, yeah, sure it's awesome people there.
Yeah,
I'll go
and
say.
I get it. The heart wants what it wants, and if you are used to not wanting this, and I don't know what causes some people to stick around and other people no. That I'm kind of interested in. I would do like to still hear from people, who and just to kind of see like what has happened to you, like, but people too, like my girlfriend who like does not participate on the Discord or has not traditionally, you can kind of see there are reasons, but I do think there is like a solution in part to this like issue of loneliness there. Like, I think I'm not saying that it's for you because I don't know enough about you, but I do think that it could be for some people and it could be for you.
All right, interesting.
Interesting. All right. Usually I end this by saying, I hope to chat you very soon, but now I'm like, this could be the last time we chat. So I just want to give you my appreciation and gratitude for coming on and being so open and sharing with us.
Well, I mean, ditto. Heck, I just tried not to be boring. I'm so anyway. I don't want to sit here and compliment each other back and forth 8 times. That just gets ridiculous.
Sounds good. With that, I will say happy trails, Mr. 4th of July.
Likewise. Thank you. Have a good day and catch y'all later. Bye bye.